guys, how are you? Now, this is not going to be much of a surprise to any of us. I just find it pretty funny. During a virtual roundtable that Biden and Harris had over the weekend, they both had, I guess you could call, a Freudian slip. So let me play it for you right now and then we'll talk.
A Harris administration together with Joe Biden.
Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort and keep pushing.
Now, Kamala Harris did correct herself afterwards. Joe Biden, I don't think, knows he's awake. But I mean, come on. We all know what's going on here. Joe Biden is not fit to run for president. He looks weak and feeble when he walks. He has trouble finishing sentences. He is not fit to be president, and all of us know this. I actually had a theory from the very beginning. I don't know if you remember, but Kamala Harris wanted to run for the presidential nomination, and during the primary debates, Tulsi Gabbard basically demolished her. She started pushing back and questioning Kamala Harris on all of the people that Kamala Harris had thrown into jail and then had them working afterwards, and Kamala Harris basically had nothing to say. She completely shut her down. It honestly was a little embarrassing to watch, and after the fact, Kamala Harris's poll numbers with people were 6%. I don't think the Democratic Party saw this coming, and around that time she dropped out of the race. And I had a feeling from the very beginning that she dropped out because she knew that her chances of becoming president were not good. She had a better chance of dropping out and trying to go for the vice presidency. And now we know that, in fact, it won't be Joe Biden if he wins, that is the president. It will be Kamala Harris, which is funny because 6%. I want to show you another part. She gave a full interview. I watched all 40 minutes of it. It was very hard to do, but I did that. So let me show you another part of the interview and then we'll talk about it.
And then, of course, families are being just beaten down by this economic crisis. And the reality of it that we also know is that right now, the offshoot of this, the impact of this is that we have 1 in 5 mothers who have been describing their children under the age of 12 as being hungry. People in America are waiting in food lines for hours, getting there at the crack of dawn, hoping that by the time they drive up, there's still food left. So in the midst of all this, we're talking about a hunger crisis. We are looking at 11 million jobs at least that have been lost. Nearly 30 million people have been collecting unemployment. And the number is even larger when you think about those who not only are unemployed, but underemployed.
So as you can see, she appears to be very concerned about families who don't know how to put food on the table and families that are unemployed and are struggling to pay their bills. I find that interesting because it's the Democrats who have been rejecting the extended coronavirus relief package that Republicans and Donald Trump have been trying to push through. They keep rejecting it, which is stalling money going into the hands of the American people. That $600 extra that people were getting on their unemployment, which helped them pay their bills. Because let me tell you something about unemployment. It will maybe cover your rent, but that's not it. It's only a fraction of what you made at whatever job you were laid off on or fired from. It doesn't actually cover all your bills. It's a small percentage of that. That's why that $600 extra, and some people say that was a little too much, but that helped people to continue to live and to continue to put food on the table and help the economy keep going. That ended July 5th, and Republicans and Donald Trump have been trying to push vigorously to get an extended relief package pushed through because a lot of states are still locked down, like here in California. And it's been the Democrats who have been rejecting it and trying to put extra things in the bill that have absolutely nothing to do with the pandemic or people that are hurting because they're unemployed. It got to the point where Donald Trump actually had to sign an emergency executive order on a Saturday to make sure that that money went into the hands of the American people. And even that is only a temporary order. It is still stalled in Congress, and Congress keeps rejecting, Democratic Congress people, mind you, keep rejecting the extended coronavirus relief package to put money in the hands of the American people and would actually help those people that Kamala Harris is describing. So I find that really interesting. I also listened to the rest of this interview, so I want to tell you some other things that Kamala Harris wants to do under the Harris-Biden administration. So Kamala Harris wants to give $100 billion to minority-owned small businesses. There's two things wrong with this. One, where is that money going to come from? And two, what about all the minority small businesses that were destroyed in the riots? I didn't hear her say anything about those. Hundreds of millions of dollars in businesses have been lost because of the riots alone. And I watched video after video after video of people of all economic backgrounds, of all ethnicities, crying hysterically because their businesses were just destroyed at the hands of the protesters who just a few weeks ago, Kamala Harris had this stance on them.
But these protests, I think, are the catalyst to getting there.
How important is it for these protests to continue?
It's critically important, and I'm not going to stop. They're not going to stop, and they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not.
You know, just here in LA, I went out the next day after May 31st, the night that we had just the insane riots here in LA. I went out the next day and I was helping businesses along with a lot of other people that were really concerned and wanted to help. We were helping businesses sweep up glass, take away spray paint. Some people were helping board up businesses, and there were a lot of minority-owned businesses. I didn't see Kamala Harris speak out against that. In fact, she was encouraging protesters to go out and continue to do what they were doing in the streets while all these people were suffering, and not once did I hear her talk about that. So a few other things that Kamala Harris wants to do is she wants apprenticeships, and she wants 2-year colleges to be completely free. She also wants 4-year universities to be completely free for anyone or any family that makes under $125,000 a year. She also wants free loan forgiveness for anyone who out of college makes under $125,000 a year, which, you know, most of us when we graduate college, we're not immediately making $125,000 a year. And hey, that all sounds great and wonderful and dandy, but what they're not telling you, and this is the trick of all of this, what they're not telling you is in order for all of this to happen, they're going to have to substantially raise your taxes. So they're saying they care about the middle class and they want to help the middle class, but in order to afford all of this, I believe your taxes have to be raised something like 70%. If you know better, please correct me, but to be able to do all of this, you have to raise taxes. So it's actually not free. You're still going to be paying for it. Your taxes are going to be paying for it. And instead of you deciding where you want your money to go and how you want to spend your money and what you care about, the government wants to decide that for you. This is just another way for the government to have more power and to have more control over your money. Let me tell you something, nothing is ever free, and you should always be weary of the people that are offering you free stuff. It is never free. Kamala Harris is also not a huge fan of the Second Amendment. She said in 2019 that she wanted to do a mandatory buyback of guns. She then later switched her stance and said she just wanted to ban AR-15s, which maybe sounds great and sounds like you're doing something big, but in actuality, AR-15s only make up, I believe, less than 1% of all gun deaths in the U.S. And do you actually think that criminals are going to turn in their guns? Another thought on that is the Constitution of the United States and America was written to protect the citizens from the government, not vice versa. If you don't believe me, read through it yourself. It was written to protect the citizens and their freedoms from the government. So anytime anyone wants to undermine, especially the First and Second Amendment, those are the Two very important things. Anytime anyone wants to undermine anything in the Constitution, I question their intentions greatly. If you want to add to it and give people more rights, then I'm always for that. But to take away rights, I'm very concerned about. One more thing that I wanted to point out, and then I'm finished. So we keep hearing this rhetoric by Democrats, and we keep hearing this narrative that police are systematically racist, that there's systematic problems with them, that they're bad and evil and they're authoritarian and this and that. But if you actually look at the numbers, it doesn't necessarily add up. This year alone, in 2020 alone, 40 officers have been killed in the line of duty. 8 of those officers were ambushed. We had 2 officers, thankfully, miraculously, they're still alive and they're expected to recover. I don't know if they'll have permanent damage, but as of right now, they're in stable condition, expected to recover. 2 officers in LA over this past weekend were ambushed while sitting in their car doing paperwork, I believe. And Kamala Harris didn't mention any of this. In fact, all she talked about was how important it is to hold police officers accountable, how she wanted to ban chokeholds and actually take power away from police officers, which I think are important conversations to have, and we all agree that officers need to be held accountable. But the narrative that it is more dangerous to encounter a cop is simply not true and doesn't add up. It is in fact more dangerous to be a police officer, and I think a lot of us right now are still praying for the police officers who were shot here in LA and are still kind of getting over the shock of seeing somebody ambush them while sitting in their car doing paperwork. So let me know your thoughts on all of that. Are you a fan of Kamala Harris? That's all I have for you today. Bye.